Hi, my name is Giselle Thompson. Welcome to the Live the Life You Want speaker series, where you'll discover ideas and strategies on how to overcome adversity, be happy, and live the life that you dream. I'm hosting the series because myself, I was in a dark place and had to figure out how to do things differently in order to live the things and do the things that really truly made me happy inside. And I felt motivated by this experience to contact other experts and specialists who do this for a living to share with you what they've learned by overcoming their own difficult times and or talking about what they've learned when they help others lift themselves out of the shadow space that sometimes we get stuck in. Today I'm introducing to you to Dr. Christian Conte. Dr. Christian Conte has over 20 years of experience in the field of counseling and many other things to his credit. I'll tell you shortly. He's developed the yield theory, to which he'll speak about very briefly, and then we'll zero in on some more concrete things for you. He's certified anger management specialist, PhD counselor education and supervision. He works actively with the prison system in his state and I think elsewhere, but he'll fill in the blanks with the bits that he would like you to know more about him. The reason I wanted to work with Dr. Conte for this interview was I really appreciated the fact that he was addressing and looking at the anger and the emotional management side of overcoming adversity. I found in my own experience, I got to a point where I was very angry, very frustrated, wasn't coping very well. And unfortunately, these things overflow into your life in ways that you never intend. So I felt that was a very important part of the message of this series, is to help people understand how they can, what they can do to have a stronger emotional self-management. Thank you so much, Dr. Conte, for coming to this interview today.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here. I absolutely love just in your intro as you talk about how you were struggling with in an area that was dark and then you turned that into a positive. And that's the epitome of overcoming adversity, because we're all hit with that. We're hit with that experience at some point, and then to be able to turn that into a positive like you're doing and really touch that many people's lives, it's really a beautiful thing. So I feel very grateful that you invited me to be a part of this.
Oh, thank you very, very much. So today you're going to talk about your theory a little bit, and then we're going to focus on, I think my sense is really overcoming adversity.
Definitely.
But we may dive into a little bit of the be happy and live your dreams, because I understood that you said that you're living your dreams, and it's important that people understand how they can get there.
I am. Yes, definitely. I think that we can, there are a lot of different directions that we can go in. I'd love to give people a little bit of background of where, of my theory and show you how it can help you overcome adversity, because this is all very realistic and practical stuff. And so I guess I'd like to start off by telling you this. So I have a tagline, right? Wherever I go, I'm a professional speaker. I go throughout the country to speak. And my tagline is that in life, listen, after being a psychotherapist and dealing with thousands of people from all over the world, specializing in working with people convicted of violent crimes, I have come to the profound realization that in life, there are really only two kinds of people in the world. There are people who have issues, and then there are dead people. So, what that means is if you're not currently dead, you've got issues. So do I. So everybody, we all do. We are in this life together. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that we're in this life together. And to have people like you who are out there saying, look, yes, I've struggled. I still struggle at times, but I'm shining light and I'm helping bring that light to others. It's such an absolutely beautiful part of humanity and what this is all about. So, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit more about yield theory, big, broad strokes.
Yes, definitely. So I created yield theory almost 20 years ago now, and I've been testing it. It's now an evidence-based approach. Yield theory is really Well, I like to sum it up by saying it is a kind of a radical form of compassion in the sense of that it is really can transform people's lives and it's practical, hands-on. So my theory is about helping motivate people, connect with people, communicate with other people. And so yield theory has 7 components. And sometimes we hear numbers, oh, do I have to remember all this? I'll kind of hit on the 7 of what they are, and there's no pressure or worry to remember them, but this is just the basic essence of what my theory is all about. So it starts off with acceptance. So acceptance is the first component of yield theory. And yield theory says, look, I have basically specialized throughout my career in working with people who have been mandated to come see me, right? So if you're committed a violent crime and then you get, let's say you're out in California where I used to have my center. Once you commit that violent crime and you serve your time in prison or jail, when you get out, you now have to go to anger management for 52 weeks, which means you've got to pay for anger management. So you're not happy to be there at first, for sure. So I've kind of made a career out of saying, look, people are here, and how do we get around that resistance? When people are resistant, how do we get around it? And this is something that doesn't just apply to violent offenders. It applies to you, me, and everybody else on the planet who's communicating. So the first component is acceptance. And so what I mean by that are 2 things. First, to accept that people are so much more than any one thing that they've done or 2 things that they've done. We are more than just our actions. And so I think a lot of times we become very judgmental when we see other people's actions and they don't line up to what we believe they should be or shouldn't be. And then whenever we mess up or we do things, it's like, oh, we have a tendency to minimize the hurt we cause others, but maximize the hurt others cause us. So acceptance is first and foremost about accepting that people are more than just the sum of their actions. And then the second piece of acceptance is that, look, if we want to help people make a change, we have to accept that they are where they are. So my analogy for this is, let's say I'm standing on top of a mountain and people are lost at the bottom of the mountain. I can't just start screaming, hey, you should be up here already, or you should have come this way, because they're not even going to hear me. They're at the bottom of the mountain. If I want to help people make a change, I have to accept that they are where they are. The past is gone. We can't change that. The future's hypothetical. It's out there. The only thing we have is a present moment. So I accept where people are, and then I have to have the discipline myself to go leave my spot to go meet them where they are. And that's really a profound part of yield theory, is meeting people where they are. So now once I meet people through where they are, acceptance, the second stage of it is authenticity. And these aren't, I hate to see you say second stage, because this is all like, I don't look at it as isolated components. I look at it as all intertwined. They kind of have to come together, just like so many pieces of different types of rock come together to form granite. The same thing, so many different forms of these come together. And at any one time, they're all important. But the second component that I would delineate is called authenticity. In other words, it's about being genuine, being real. There's a saying, that floats around the prisons, which is real recognizes real. In other words, when you're authentic, people are going to recognize that. And there are neurological reasons for that. And that means in our brains, we have things called mirror neurons. So if I raise my hand, in your brain, knowing that what raising your hand looks like, you just did that in your brain. But your body doesn't have to do it. Otherwise, we'd all be puppets, right? We'd just walk around, I'd do this, you'd do that. But the point is, when you watch people act, your brain is literally doing that same action, the root of vicarious learning. I tell you all that because if you're not authentic when you interact with others, people can spot it a mile away. So to be authentic is to be genuine in your approach to others. And that starts with being genuine in your approach to understanding yourself. I love that you alluded to earlier the shadow, that we have the shadow aspect of us, because in Jungian psychology, the shadow specifically refers to the things that we don't want to face in ourselves. We see others, whether that's negative or positive, but that's what the shadow is. So love that. So so acceptance, authenticity, and then we have what I call conscious education. Conscious education is expanding people's awareness. And to expand people's awareness is just a huge piece of this component. And then the next part is creativity. And to sum that up really quickly, it's this. if I want to bring conscious education to people, if I want to help bring awareness to people, I have to realize that not everybody learns in the same way. Not everybody starts in the same spot. So again, coming back to that mountain analogy, I have to have the discipline to go find where people are and meet them there, and then help them in the way that works best for them. So in other words, I notice you're wearing glasses, and as the old Stephen Covey analogy goes, if I was having trouble, if we're at a conference together and I can't see the board, you can't just give me your glasses and I put them on and say, oh, now I can see, because your prescription works for you, but doesn't necessarily work for me. So that's the idea of creativity, is we have to have the discipline to meet people where they are. As a really super quick side note, for years, I actually was a tenured professor before I gave that all up. But one of the things I did is I never left a classroom that didn't have good energy and blame it on the students. I wouldn't say, oh, well, look, the students weren't very, energetic today, or that was a bad class because of them. If the class didn't go well, I took in 100% responsibility, saying, look, this is my job to communicate effectively and to teach effectively. And that translates, and I say that because that translates into us as in our everyday relationships. If you and your husband are having a disagreement, you are entirely responsible for your part. He is entirely responsible for his part. So instead of blaming you for what you didn't do, I would invite him to look at what he could do more effectively. And the same for you, and the same for all of us.
Yeah, or vice versa.
100%. 100%.
I would just say, if I can interject, that
Please.
was the beginning for me. Is I read a little bit of Jack Canfield, and he was like, accept 100% responsibility. I'm like, really? And then, okay, I finally got around to it. I'm ready for the next chapter. No excuses. Really? So, I spent quite a few months on those 2 chapters, but it makes a difference.
It makes an enormous difference to not accept responsibility. Look, a lot of the work I do with guys in prison is they really don't want to accept responsibility for what they've done. Instead, it's like, well, this happened. And I say this, look, I'm one of the biggest proponents of going out there and helping the world see that people are more than just the sum of their actions, and that there's a reason why people do the things they do. So absolutely, there are always reasons why people do what they do. However, I always say my job is to explain behavior, not excuse it. So once we start to accept responsibility for our actions, the role we play, now we can change it. So to me, that's very empowering. So as you in your journey, you start to accept full responsibility. Say, okay, well, listen, my husband might be doing this or this, but the reality is how I respond to him is fully in my control. And that's such an empowering realization for people.
It's a game changer.
It is. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
So going through those components, we talk about creativity, finding different ways to meet people. And then the next component is what I call elimination of shame. And I really want to speak to this for a moment, because this is a big part of what I do. And I find that, and remember, you have to understand, I have worked with thousands of people from all over the world. I have more than 18,000, maybe 19,000 hours of one-on-one clinical experience sitting down in sessions with people and learning about their world. And what I have found is that if I feel like I'm worthless, if I feel like I'm no good and not worth something, then why not hurt you? Why not hurt somebody else? So when people really feel shame, and there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is feeling bad about something you've done. That's fine. Feel bad, learn from it, and grow and do something different. But shame is feeling bad about who you are. And there's a huge, huge difference between I feel bad about what I did and saying, that wasn't very good, versus I'm no good. And that's what shame is. I'm no good. And overwhelming my experiences taught me. And remember, I specialize in violent offenders. People who live out of shame act out of shame. So I really invite people to learn how to eliminate that shame and how to let it go and to move forward, because again, we can't change the past anyway. And I know I said violent offenders, but the truth is that's you, that's me, that's everybody, that's all of us in the world. It's, comes back to that original 2 kinds of people type thing. Yeah. So elimination of shame. And then I look at mindfulness, because for me, mindfulness is about awareness. This whole thing is about what you're doing is overcoming adversity, being happy, living the life of your dreams. And what I often ask people is, are you aware, is the behavior that you're doing contributing to the dreams you want to be living? Or are you, and on the way you're going to figure that out is to be mindful, Am I where I want to be in life? Am I not where I want to be in life? Okay. Yeah. And are my daily habits contributing to it? I have spent so many years working with parents. I actually wrote a book called Zen Parent, Zen Child. And the idea is, if I want my child to be Zen, I can't just expect them to magically be Zen because I want them that way. I have to have the discipline to be Zen myself. And so that book is all about learning to take control of yourself so that you can say, listen, I want to be in control of me because I want to role model that for my child. So, and that begins with mindfulness. And it's not just parenting, it's relationships, it's everything. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people get mindfulness is out there all over the world, in bookstores, everywhere, people throw the concept around. And here, Giselle, one of the things that I find is that when people, they understand something here, they say, oh, I understand what mindfulness is, so I have it. But there's a difference between getting it here and getting it here. Getting it. So mindfulness is constant awareness of who you are, what you do, how you come across to others. One kind of funny side note, I trained counselors and psychologists. People are going on to do that with their careers, master's students, doctoral students, and I would watch videos of them. And I did this for so long, and they would think, well, I'm coming across a certain way, right? And so I had a monitor in my office, and we had a clinic at the university. I was a professor at the University of Nevada, Reno, and we had a clinic. And so I would watch my students counsel, and they would come in when they were done. They would like, man, Dr. Conte, you should see I did this. I don't know, you didn't. They'd be like, yes, I did. No, you didn't. And then we'd play the tape back, and they'd be like, oh my goodness, I guess I didn't. And it was just, once you see yourself, you come across much differently than what you think you come across. Mm-hmm. And so it's very powerful to be mindful of the ways in which you are coming across to others.
Okay.
And, yeah. And then the last component, and then we'll come back, we'll go any direction. Yeah. But the last component is non-attachment. And very simply, because this is a video conference, right? So people are going to be able to see me, right, when we're doing this. So I'd do it like this. Like, let's say this notebook has all of my thoughts and ideas. And if I hold on to this, if you disagree with it and you say, well, I hate that yield theory stuff, that's a bunch of crap, then I take it personally, right? Because I'm attached to it. But if I take my ideas and I set them down over here, if you disagree with my ideas, I go, okay, those are just my ideas, right? We would all say that we're still learning. We would all say we have more to learn. But funny enough, the moment someone disagrees with us, oh, no, this is the way I think, this is the way I believe, and we become very attached. And now we get angry when people disagree with us. For what? Because they don't like our ideas? Even we are learning that we're not our ideas. So non-attachment is not just about not being attached to material goods, but being non-attached to your ideas as well. Again, simple idea here, extremely difficult to practice here. And that's huge. So those are the 7 components of yield theory.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. So there's a lot to dive into, but there's a couple that surfaced for me that I'd like to hear you speak more about, and that's creativity, shame, or releasing of shame, and maybe if there's time between mindfulness or non-attachment, but that Definitely. Notion of we are creators of our world, yes. That 100% responsibility and all that stuff. And then that idea of shame, because what I'm finding interesting in what you're sharing and focusing on that is, I have to be careful here not to generalize, but it's something that's socialized to some extent. So it kind of happens in the background and you're not even aware of it. And
I'd agree with that.
So if you could zero in on those 2 things specifically about what you tell people to help them overcome or deal with, so overcome the shame, what are some specific strategies, and then the creativity, how to leverage it more. Maybe. Okay,
so let's start with the creativity, because I thought I heard that part of the question asked first. So let's start with creativity. So in terms of creativity, look, we are writing the story of our lives right now. And what's really fascinating to me is if people go to the movies and they watch a movie and literally nothing happens, they're going to be like, why did I just pay money for this movie? We want to see the adventure. We want to see the adversity. We want to see the obstacles. And also, if I ask people to describe who they are, they often use the adversity that they faced to say who I am. For instance, this whole series sparked because you had adversity and you overcame that adversity, right? But what's fascinating is when we're going through the adversity, people rarely say, oh, thank goodness I'm in this adversity.
Yeah, there's other language that's used.
Right. There's definitely other language that's used. So what I do is to teach people to embrace that adversity as you're going through it. Like, this is the adversity you're facing right now is going to be the story that you tell later. Hey, look, I hit this adversity. And did it hurt? Yes, it hurt. Would it make me sad? Of course it made me sad. It hurt in so many different ways. But there's a difference between being hurt and being done, right? And we're never done. We're never done. We always have an option. People can change. I mean, I read a story of a guy who was 99 years old and learned to read. He got his driver's license that year. After 99 years of never going through life, never learned to read, he learned to read. He actually wrote a book at age 99, and then just changed his life around. So we're never done. We're never done. For me, creativity, I do a lot of storytelling. So if people were to look me up on the web, you'll see, like, if you go to my Instagram and things like that, I often tell stories. And as a speaker, I do lots of stories. I do a lot in the Zen philosophy and Zen stories, but Aesop's fables, I love to tell Aesop's fables.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of draw on those because what I found is the parables, when you tell stories, metaphors, people can learn about those over and over and over and over and over again. I'll give you an example. I had heard this story, I don't know how many times, but a professor once went to see a Zen master. And when he went to see him, he sat down at the table and the Zen master invited him in. He said, I need you to teach me everything about Zen. I want to learn so much. And the Zen master started to pour some tea for him. And he said, there's so many things I want to learn. There's so many things I want to know. And the Zen master just kept pouring the tea for him. And he's like, I'm so fascinated by your culture. I think it's so wonderful. And then the cup starts, he's just pouring over and over. And finally the professor's like, oh my goodness, it's spilling. And the Zen master said, that's pretty much how your mind is. Your mind is overflowing. And until you learn to empty your cup, you'll never be ready for new ideas. Mm. And so this is a very commonly known story, right? And I have read it hundreds of times myself. I've told it hundreds of times myself. But one day, I'm going to say about 5 or 6 years ago, I was rereading that story. And I went to just flip over it and be like, I've told this story thousands of times. I've read this story thousands of times. Why would I even bother with this again? And then it hit me. I wasn't emptying my cup. Like, I needed to see this story again fresh. I needed to see what I could learn more. And it was unbelievable. This is a transformative experience for me because here's this story I'd heard hundreds of times, said hundreds of times, but now I needed to look at it new. I needed to really literally empty my cup. Mm-hmm. And I find this to be a key for all of us because we become so attached to what we think, to what we believe, and we say, no, it's got to be my way, or I'm open-minded as long as everybody who agrees with me, I'm open-minded, right? Like I can't accept that people might think differently. So to really genuinely empty your cup, that's a profound experience. Again, it comes back to being able to be non-attached to do that. But let me come to the creativity part. The creativity part is this. When I really open myself up to genuine learning, now I can accept without ego. I can take my ego, set it aside, and I can allow my creativity to flow. Mm-hmm. And we are all very creative beings with so much to offer. So,
okay, awesome. And now we're going to go more to the shadow side of things, shame.
Yeah. So shame. So I find that when people are stuck in that, when they say, I can't get free of this, they're stuck because they define themselves in a certain way. And here's a very empowering, practical piece of information for your listeners to know. We are free at any moment to redefine who we are. We are free at any moment, if we're writing the stories of our lives, to write a new page starting right now. So why if you found out that you let's say you've been carrying a backpack for a long time and you found out that there were a lot of unnecessary items in that backpack, would you, at the point when you found that out, say, yeah, but I've already been carrying them for so long anyway, I might as well just keep carrying them even though they're completely unnecessary and weighing me down? Or would you say, no, I'm going to get rid of these, right? If it's a backpack, we say, oh, get rid of these. I'm going to travel lighter, right? But it's interesting because when we come to our psyches, we say, well, no, I've been carrying this around for so long, I might as well just keep carrying it more. And it's like people staying in toxic relationships. They say, well, I've already committed this many years to the relationship, so I might as well stay in it, knowing both people are fully out of the relationship mentally, spiritually, physically. And then they stay in the relationship because, well, I just can't get out of it because I've always been in it. I don't want to waste my time. Well, you've already wasted this much of your life. Why waste this much of your life? So it's difficult for people to let go of the past, not only in relationships, but in shame and saying, I feel bad about that. And here's what I have to say for a practical answer in terms of getting through shame. You're human. You're one of the two kinds of people. You're not dead. You're alive. That means you're human and you're going to mess up, and that's okay. People mess up. We make mistakes. And you might be sitting there listening and saying, yeah, but not what I did. Well, you have to remember who's speaking right now, because I specialize in working with people who have done the most horrific things that you can think of as a human being, stuff that you don't even see in movies or know about. Some of the most horrific, realistic, real life things. And it's difficult. It's very difficult. I'm not going to say that it's easy to sit with someone who's done really horrific things. But what I know is this: if we have them dwell in that and sit in that, then they'll continue to do that. But if we can release that, if we can have them shift and let go of some of that stuff, then they can redefine who they are. Just like you, me, and every one of your listeners right now can redefine who you are to overcome any adversity that you're facing.
Your passion for this is really coming through, and the people that you must have helped over the years, they must be very appreciative of what you've been able to help them figure out.
Thank you. I really appreciate you noticing that. I am extremely passionate. I'm 43 years old. I've been doing this for a very long time, but I've never lost passion, because I used to teach when I would say to my students in counseling, I'd say, listen, if you think you're not going to put a lot of effort into studying this week, then which of the human beings that you're going to sit with from now to the end of your career are you willing to look in the eyes and say, I didn't really study much about your issue. I don't really know how to help you, because I kind of, that chapter was boring to me. I didn't want to. So if you're dealing with the human beings, every one of them equal to you, then there is no human being you could look at and say, well, I can't help you. I don't know. No, I'm going to be committed. And what I found is through the years, to be a part of people's journeys, to watch people make changes, that's energizing. I was always an athlete. I work with some of the best athletes in the world. I do a podcast with an NFL legend, Ray Lewis. I see all the people at peak performances and all that stuff. And I tell you this, like, they reach that level. And what I help them with is to get rid of that past, be focused on the present moment, and then and realize what they can really genuinely control.
So in a way, we're kind of shifting into you living your dreams. Do you mind just expanding on that a little bit, and then bringing it back to the listener about how that can inspire them to pursue their own dreams?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so I want to set the stage here for you. I was a tenured professor. That means you get a job for life, right? I had a mental health organization I was the clinical director of. I co-founded a center for people convicted of violent crimes. I was doing all this simultaneously. I was a professional speaker. I was out doing stuff. We lived out west. I'm on the eastern part of the United States now in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This was all out west when I was doing this stuff. So my career was fueled. I had this tremendous, I felt blessed to have the type of career I had. And one day my wife and I said, look, we've been together for 19 years. We've been married 17. And one day we said, look, we want to kind of go back home because our daughter was growing up without the grandparents around and the family around. So we decided I gave it all up, right? I literally walked away from that entire career, and I came back to the eastern part of the United States. And I thought, after a week, oh my goodness, what did I do? I just gave up my entire career. And I had to kind of start my whole career over again. And it was scary. And those are those obstacles. Those are those moments when it's, what am I going to do? How is this going to happen? But for me, I just kept working. And what I saw was there was a point, and I haven't told this story publicly yet. So it's cool because my wife's been asking me to tell it to publicly. But there was a point when we first moved back to Pennsylvania where she was helping me try to call prisons to get me to volunteer to come speak. And I got denied by everybody. Like, they wouldn't even allow me to volunteer to come speak. This was 5 years ago. Now, the entire state of Pennsylvania is very close to adopting yield theory, my theory.
Wow.
Train every officer, every corrections officer to work with the inmate.
Good work.
Like, this is what's happened. And it didn't just happen overnight. Like, it happens by, like, you come up against, you hit an obstacle, boom, I'm either going to go around it, over it, through it. I'm going to find a different way. And so my thought has never been, oh no, I hit a wall, that's it. My thought is, I'm going to make a goal. Clear goals are much more likely to be met than unclear goals. So I'm going to make that goal clear, and then I'm going to go for it. So for me, yes. And then so when we can move back, I ended up getting into television. I did a show on Spike called Coaching Bad. That's where I first met Ray Lewis. And we took coaches who screamed at kids and put them down, and we taught them a different path. And then I did a show on VH1 family therapy, celebrity family therapy, and that was fun. I've been doing that. I'm a professional speaker. I've always maintained that even when we moved across the country. So I do that. I get to go all over the country and speak, and I do get to literally wake up and live the life that I want. And it didn't happen by people just handing me things. And I think it's interesting because the younger generation right now, my experience, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but maybe it's always been like this. I'm not sure. I can't decipher if it's just because of me or it's a new generation, but it seems that younger people nowadays just expect that they should be at this level doing what I'm doing, even if they don't put in the work. Hey, I've been at this for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years, and I should be where you are. Well, remember, there was a point where I was already an established professional speaker, and I had to start my career over again because I brought a different part of the country. Mm-hmm. So to start from scratch from that means you just work hard. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to put that time in. And what I would invite people to do is put the time in because it's worth it. Invest in yourself because you're the only person you can ever control.
So if you're in front of the convicted
violent offenders that you work with, and you're saying, okay, yeah, you can live the life of your dreams. Mm-hmm. You say work hard. Like, what are the things that you get them to focus on to live that dream life that's deep inside them that they don't want to let out because they don't want that to be crushed too? Well, people have absolute fear of failure, right? What if I try this and it doesn't work? So I would say, absolutely, you're going to hit failure. Again, we come back to that whole idea of we all define ourselves by the adversity we overcame. But then as soon as we hit with adversity again, we're like, oh no, that's it. I can't go on. Oh, hold on a second. This is just a part of your story. So I invite them to learn to make that part of their story. Again, the same thing, not just with violent offenders, but with athletes, with celebrities, with everyday people. Like, this is everyone. Like, if you really want to live the life that you want, it's going to say, you're going to have to say, maybe here's an analogy that might work. If I say that I'm going to put you through an obstacle course, and I tell you there are going to be 4 obstacles, and then you get through the 4 obstacles, and then you find a 5th obstacle, you're going to be like, what? You told me there were 4 obstacles, right? Like, this isn't fair. This isn't right. But let's say I told you that there are going to be 6 obstacles and there were 5. Now you get over the 5th one. You're ready for the next one. You realize you're already done. How are you going to feel? You're going to feel a lot different. You're going to be like, oh, I feel a lot better. And there's no difference in the amount of obstacles. The difference is in your mindset. One time you prepared yourself for more obstacles so you could handle them. But the other time you were like, no, I already had my obstacles. I shouldn't have any more. And so we live in what I call the cartoon world, the world of shoulds. Like, this is how the world should be. And there's a difference between what you think the world should be and how the world really is. The cartoon world, the real world. And what I teach people to do, honestly, Giselle, is to align their expectations with reality, which means be prepared for what the world's going. That means you're going to hit obstacles, and that's okay. When you hit those obstacles, be prepared to be able to go through them, around them, over them, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really what
I
it's
think
about.
that's very helpful, because that last piece that you put in, because yes, hard work's important. Yes, not giving up, finding ways to go around it, all those things. But if you've lived a particularly traumatic experience, and then it's led to all kinds of other trauma in your life that you perpetuated and have been perpetuated on you, where do you start, right? And so I'm hearing you say, just start with being prepared to fail, and that's okay. And get your mind ready to overcome 10 obstacles, and you'll be happy that there are only 5.
Right. And the truth is, as long as we're alive, we'll hit obstacles. So I once wrote a piece for one of my books, Life Lessons. I wrote a chapter called Lifelong Obstacle Course. Once you realize you're going to have obstacles your entire life, you're going to handle them differently.
Yeah.
And look, I say to people who have survived traumas and intense traumas, like, how amazing it is that you're here right now. Like, a lot of times people who survive these intense traumas will be sitting, they'll say, I can't do this. And I say, not only are you doing this, but this is unbelievable power and passion that you're showing, that you're here, that you're working on yourself after everything you've been through. Like, you're an inspiration to me and everybody that you could ever come across. Not going to go, I didn't realize it that way. Well, yeah, let's look at the obstacles the way they really are. You're not only strong enough to deal with it, you are dealing with it every day.
And for people who are gamers, and I'm going to use an analogy. I used to game a lot, and I made a commitment that I would use that time to build to a certain level, so that then I could get a really nice system and a really nice setup, and that would be a model for my children, just by the fact that it's in the house. That would be the statement. I don't have to, talk about it. Here it is. There's the statement.
Yeah.
But being, having gamed a lot, it's like when you level up in a game, well, then the obstacles are harder, right?
Yes.
It's not like suddenly all the obstacles are easy. They kind of are cued to where you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they're never going to go away. They're just going to get more interesting, more intriguing, more demanding of you, so that you can show up even more and reveal more of the beauty and the amazing things that are inside of you.
Absolutely. What a beautiful, beautiful analogy. I love that analogy, because you're 100% right. So, and you can't choose to check out of that, because let's say, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'll just stay in my house all day and I'll never do anything. And maybe the obstacles will avoid me. No, they'll still be there then, because think about your health issues and risks. So you're always going to face obstacles. That's part of life. That's okay. That's why I love your title of Overcoming Adversity, because this is what you're doing. And you know what? It's one beautiful thing, because all of your listeners out there are overcoming adversity right now. So I think this is a message I love for people to hear. If I could reach in people's hearts and have them feel, it'd be this. A lot of times people come and say, well, I don't know where to start. And I say, you already started, because as soon as you even had the idea that I think I'd like something else, that's already the first step.
Yeah.
And look, the first step's always the hardest, and you already took that. So now if they're taking time to watch this stuff, they've already taken the first step. Now it's a matter of, how do I channel that and continue to channel it in the direction that will make me be fulfilled in the most effective possible way.
That's really awesome, and thank you for sharing your one message, because that was my next question. So you beat me to the punch. That's awesome. So why don't we come to the closing of the interview, Dr. Conte, and if you could share with the audience, I think you had a gift that you wanted to invite them to check out.
Well, look, twice a week, every week, I do a podcast called Tackling Life with NFL legend Ray Lewis. So here is Ray Lewis, one of the most inspirational, motivational human beings on planet Earth. He played 17 years in the NFL. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he goes up for it next year. He's a phenomenal human being, phenomenal energy. And every week he and I do a podcast that, it doesn't cost money. You just go to iTunes, you download Tackling Life, and it's all about inspiration, motivation, and personal growth. So we tell stories. We link it to sports, but sports are kind of the metaphor for life. And I think most of our listeners will find that a majority of the time that these lessons, it doesn't have to be, we don't even talk about a sport. Like sometimes he and I go on and we're talking about the things you and I are talking about, and we might just bring in sports at the end to kind of show it. But the reality is this is what we're talking about, everyday life. Like he and I are actually going into the prison, maximum security prison, for an unprecedented episode. And these aren't things that are timed, so you're not going to miss it. Like if you, whenever you're watching this interview, you can kind of go back to iTunes, Tackling Life. And then when you download Tackling Life podcast, you can get the episode that we're going to do this April 20th, which is in working with the people who are in the maximum security prison, who are facing life imprisonment. And we're going to talk to them about the messages that they would have said to their younger selves to kind of try to bring the message out. Yeah, and it's unprecedented access. We are blessed to be, Secretary Wetzel. He is the head of the prison system in Pennsylvania. He's one of the absolutely most phenomenal human beings I ever met. He is making real change happen in Pennsylvania prisons, and he'll be there with us. So it'll be Secretary Wetzel, Ray Lewis, and me, and we're going to go in and speak to these lifers, and it's going to be powerful. So Tackling Life podcast. And then if you're interested in my work more, I also, while you're on iTunes, I do a podcast called Emotional Management. And basically it's on over 500 stations every day, but it's a 1 minute, kind of like, I might tell a little story, like you've heard me tell some stories here today, a little story with a lesson, but it's something like that. So my two podcasts are Tackling Life and then Emotional Management. Okay. And hopefully the people can enjoy that.
Oh yeah. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you shared with the group, and it really means a lot to me that you kept it really practical and concrete. I'm really glad we took the time to honor your work and some of the thinking that's gone behind what you're trying to bring to the world. And it's important to hear about the thinking. And I'm glad we had a chance to do that, but it's also so important to zero in on those nuggets of things that I can apply today, right now. And I think you've been very generous with some very practical things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I genuinely appreciate being a part of this. I appreciate you thinking of me. I love what you're doing. Like, I think that is what you're doing is the epitome of just grace, to be able to go through something hard and it's come across to other people and say, look, I made it through it and I want to inspire you. So I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And definitely. And I appreciate you in, thinking of me. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. And I just want to thank the audience too, the listeners, for tuning in today. You can see that Dr. Conte has thought through a lot of things, and he's got tons of experience to draw on. And do listen to his podcast. I'm sure you'll hear a lot more useful ideas to help you. So tune in for future interviews. We've got a lot more amazing experts who've invested their life into working with people to help them overcome adversity, be happy, and find a way to live their dreams. So thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye-bye.